Hello and welcome to Systematic Theology 1. Today we're looking at the review for the final exam. It's good to be with you. Let's go ahead and jump into this. A few things that you're going to need to know is the definition of creation. Please be able to explain the differences between immediate creation as well as mediate creation, and you'll see that on the next slide there. And so that'd be important for you to know. Also, the passage Genesis 1 and 2. I'd love for you to be able to know those verses very well. And then Elohim created time, space, and matter, and you see that in the first part. And then created is the Hebrew word bara, which is ex nihilo, out of nothing. So please know those things. Look at the days of creation. Please know those. That'd be helpful for the exam. Also, knowing in Genesis 1:31, God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. Know what that means, that it's very good. And so got a slide there for you. What is preservation when it's referring to God's sovereignty and God's ability to keep things maintained or going? Also, what is sovereignty? Sovereignty is the idea that God reigns alone. And we've got a couple of verses there for that. So that's important for you to know. This is an interesting slide for us. It'd be good to know that man is not just simply a sexual being, an animal, a free being, a social being. He's more than all those things combined. He is made in the image of God. So we're going to look at, you'll definitely have part of that on the test, and you'll see that. Also, the Christian view of humanity. And you see this from Erickson: a human being is a creature of God, made in the image of God, and a couple of different quotes there. So it'd be good if you were familiar with those. Don't have to be too familiar, but just knowing what this is about. And then it'd be very important to know the views of a human being, the types of creation versus evolution views. You got fiat creationism, naturalistic evolution, deistic evolution, theistic evolution, and progressive creationism. Be able to know those, know their definitions, how they would go together, all those types of things. Also, God created all things and called them good before the fall of man. What was it like? Adam and Eve were good. They were without sin, guiltless. Know things like that. That'd be very helpful for the exam. Also know that being the image of God is based mostly on our calling, and so there's some different teachings here on the calling, about relationship with God, representatives of God, caretakers of the world. So be familiar with that as well. Please be able to know the differences between dichotomy, trichotomy, and work through those in a simple fashion. You see that in those two slides there. That's helpful. And then the trichotomy view, verses that are often used in support of the trichotomy view. So be able to give some reasons for that and why those verses are, they're speaking to the trichotomy view. Why? Separation of body, soul, and spirit. Also, main reasons why the dichotomy view is more prevalent today. That's by Wayne Grudem. It'd be important to see and understand why that view is important there. God's love for all peoples, you see this even with the unborn, and I want you to be familiar with this. So there's a few passages I'm going to give you about the unborn, and then how God speaks to them, how they are really fearfully and wonderfully made. And so know those: Psalm 139, Luke 1, 41, 44, and then Exodus 21, 22 through 25. That's very important to know those about God's thoughts on the unborn. See here about the sin and how that's a personal act of Adam, of course, but there's Eve that was deceived and Adam was with her. So be able to answer the questions that deal with what's the temptation all about. And so see that here: to have the knowledge of God, to be like God, to have your eyes opened. Then the deception of Eve. It's important. I'd love for you to know this quote to summarize: the woman fell by deception, the man by affection. That's a great quote. You might see that on the test, and so it'd be important to know that quote. There's a verse for that there. Also, how Adam failed, Jesus fulfilled, and you see that through Adam. You really need to know this passage, 1 Corinthians 15, 21, 22, talking about, in Adam all die, also in Christ shall all be made alive. Then, what is sin? Know Grudem's definition. Sin is any failure to conform to the moral law of God in act, attitude, or nature. The source of sin, these are verses speaking of how man is responsible for his own sin. And please know that. That's vital. The effect of sin on Adam and Eve. There's a spiritual death, physical death, eternal death, and know a little bit about each thing. That'd be great. Then Christ in eternity past, we look here and we see that Jesus at the bottom, Jesus is eternal. He's not pre-existent. You need to know that and be able to explain that. There's just a picture of Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and they believe that Jesus was pre-existent, not eternal. What is typology? Be able to recognize what typology is, be able to maybe understand this definition given by Walvoord. That'd be important to us. A couple of types, Abel, and know the different understanding why he's a type of Christ. Also Joseph. It'd be great if you knew several of these. It'd be helpful to see how Joseph is a type of Christ. Then the nature of Christ. Know the word kenosis as like a vocabulary word, the emptying of Christ. Be able to recognize that, know what that is. Philippians 2, 5 through 8 as well. Then God's immutability. That's Jesus has that as well, of course. Being a part of the Trinity, God does not change. Jesus doesn't change either. And so that's going to be on the exam. Also, the different beliefs about Jesus Christ. Now, you can use some of these. You can also, what we're going to do is I'm going to either have these in matching or there'll be multiple choice, whatever it is, but it'll be easy for you to recognize which one goes with which. So you got the different terms there, talking about the person of Christ. And then more vocabulary words, and be able to know those and recognize those. Of course, be able to answer the questions about hypostatic union and that Jesus is fully human and fully divine. That's important for you to know. Another word would be trilemma. Be familiar with that. This is C.S. Lewis's concept of Jesus was either a liar, a lunatic, or Lord. He can't just be a moral teacher or moral example. And so you have to see that. Be able to answer the question, did Jesus receive worship while in his flesh? And the answer is yes. And you see some verses there, different examples of that there, okay? And then atonement, I'm going to give you some vocabulary words. Atonement, expiation. And the idea, I'll probably ask something about Jesus said it is finished on the cross. What is the it that Jesus finished? Well, there's a lot of ways to look at that, and there's so many aspects to that of him reconciling himself to the world. But the it ultimately of the gospel is that Jesus Christ has saved sinners from their sin and saved them to righteousness. Two aspects to the cross: saved from sin, saved to righteousness. So be able to kind of recognize that. Forgiveness is a word, very important. Guilt, justice, justification, penalty, propitiation, another vocab word. Ransom, reconciliation, redemption, I believe was the last word there. Remission, and then we have righteousness, sanctification, satisfaction, substitution. Be familiar with all those words. This will be an important phrase for the test, penal substitutionary atonement, and you can kind of see a teaching about that on this. But be able to recognize that for sure. And then we have the acronym for the resurrection or proof of the resurrection, and it's the acronym ALIVE. Know that acronym. That'll be definitely on your test, as well as the theories concerning the resurrection. And of course, we know the last one's not a theory, it's truth. Jesus rose from the dead. Okay, well, this is your review for the final examination. I know we went through that quickly, but there's a lot there to go through. Please be prepared, and we will. The exam will be given to you at the appropriate time. God bless you, and do a great job studying. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.